building a home for alien refugees. He became the hero they never had. HFY Sci-Fi story. The sky above Orion, 7 glowed with the colors of 2 suns setting together, painting the horizon in shades of orange and violet. High above the mountains, the human colony's radar stations buzzed nervously. Strange shapes appeared on the scanners. Ships of unfamiliar design, drifting without clear control, slowly approaching the planet. Captain Elias Grant stood on the observation deck of the Orion Command Station, staring at the screens. He had seen many things in his years as a peacekeeping engineer, but this made his stomach tighten. "They're refugees," he said quietly, almost to himself. "Refugees? From where?" asked Lieutenant Maris, his second-in-command, frowning at the flickering lights. Elias shook his head. "I don't know exactly, but their fleet is damaged, energy shields failing. They won't survive long in orbit without help. Most humans in Orion. 7 had no desire to risk themselves. The last thing they wanted was trouble from unknown aliens. Reports of Zithrans, delicate, intelligent beings from a distant planet, were whispered with fear. Their technology was advanced, but their bodies were fragile, unable to withstand harsh environments. "Orders are clear," Maris said. "We can't interfere. Let them fend for themselves." Elias clenched his fists. Orders were easy to give when lives weren't at stake. But he couldn't just watch. He had seen too many ships destroyed, too many lives lost because people were too afraid to act. "I'm not waiting for orders," he said. His voice carried a quiet determination. "Someone has to help them, and it might as well be me." By the time he spoke those words, he was already moving toward the shuttle bay. A small transport shuttle waited, engines humming, ready for deployment. Elias didn't stop to consider the consequences. With a few quick commands, he bypassed the security protocols and prepared for launch. As the shuttle left the station, the vastness of space opened up before him. The Zithran fleet appeared like fragile jewels against the dark void. Elias could see their forms, elegant and elongated, shimmering faintly with bioluminescence. The ships were barely holding together. Panels sparking, shields flickering, engines failing. His communicator crackled. "Captain Grant, stop. You are violating direct orders." Elias ignored it, focusing on his mission. He had one goal: reach the Zithrans and save them before it was too late. The docking with the largest Zithran ship was tense. Its outer hull was smooth and iridescent, almost alive in appearance. He guided the shuttle with precision, dodging debris floating around. Once docked, the airlock opened, revealing the interior of the ship. Inside, the Zithrans moved slowly. Their limbs were long and delicate, and their eyes were wide and luminous. They didn't speak in words humans understood. Their language was melodic, almost like music. Several of them froze at the sight of Elias. Fear and curiosity mingled in their expressions. A small Zithran child moved toward him, stepping carefully. Its eyes were bright, full of hope despite exhaustion. Elias knelt, holding out a hand. The child reached for it, and in that simple gesture, an unspoken promise was made. He would not let them die. "Follow me," Elias said gently. "We're getting out of here." The journey back to Orion, 7 was tense. Most of the Zithrans stayed quiet, watching the human pilot with wary eyes. Some clung to each other, unsure what to expect. Elias spoke softly, describing the landing site he had scouted from orbit. A wide valley surrounded by mountains, sheltered from storms, with a river running through it. A perfect place to build a home. When they landed, the valley stretched before them, quiet and untouched. Elias guided the Zithrans off the shuttle. He noticed that some humans had gathered on a nearby ridge, watching with suspicion. Whispers carried on the wind. Why is he helping them? They don't belong here. This could be dangerous. Elias ignored them. His focus was on the Zithrans, ensuring their safety first. Some of the refugees stumbled, weak from the journey. He helped them, offering support, lifting children in his arms when they couldn't walk. One elder Zithran, Lyrian, observed him with sharp eyes. He did not trust easily. His species had suffered betrayal and loss for centuries. Yet, there was something different about Elias, something in the way he moved, the care he showed, and the calm determination that seemed to radiate from him. Slowly, Lyrian nodded, acknowledging that this human might be a friend, but safety was only the beginning. Elias knew the valley was empty, with no shelters, no structures. The Zithrans had never built anything like this on Orion 7. They lacked the strength to operate human machinery, and their delicate bodies could be harmed by the rough terrain. Elias knelt on the ground, examining the valley. "We'll build something here," he said aloud, mostly to himself. "A home, a real home, somewhere you can be safe." A murmur of understanding passed through the Zithrans. They didn't fully comprehend human words, but they understood intent, the promise of safety, of care, of a future. This was enough to begin trust. As the first night fell, Elias set up temporary shelters using whatever supplies he had brought. He arranged the refugees close together, ensuring they were warm and protected. He started a small communication beacon, reaching out to Orion 7, requesting supplies. Hours later, when he finally rested, Elias looked up at the stars. He had saved them for now, but the journey was just beginning. Most humans on the planet still viewed the Zithrans with fear. Supplies could be delayed or blocked, and the task of building a permanent home for thousands of refugees seemed almost impossible. Yet, Elias felt something he hadn't felt in years, a sense of purpose that went beyond duty. This was not about orders or politics. It was about life, compassion, and hope. By morning, the refugees had begun to explore the valley cautiously. Children laughed softly, a sound that had been absent for so long. Adults moved carefully, examining the terrain, following Elias' guidance. Lyrian approached him. "You are different," Lyrian said in broken human words, mixed with Zithran melody. "You do not see us as enemies. You see us as life." Elias nodded. "I see what everyone deserves, a chance to survive, a place to call home." Word of Elias' mission began to spread. Some humans criticized him for breaking protocol. Others admired his bravery, quietly. But Elias didn't think of recognition. The refugees were all that mattered. By the end of the first day, small fires glowed in the temporary shelters. Children played with makeshift toys, and adults began to organize themselves under Elias' guidance. It wasn't a home yet, but it was the first step. Elias knew that challenges lay ahead. Building permanent shelters, feeding everyone, ensuring safety from natural hazards, and navigating human politics. But he also knew this. As long as he stood with them, they had a chance. And for the Zithrans, Elias was more than human. He was a promise, a hero they never had, arriving when hope seemed lost. As the twin suns rose over mountains, Elias watched over the valley. In that moment, he understood the truth of his mission. Sometimes, the greatest battles are not fought with weapons, but with courage, compassion, and unwavering determination. And in this quiet valley on Orion 7, a home for the lost was about to be built. Brick by brick, hope by hope, with Elias leading the way. The valley glimmered under the soft light of Orion 7's twin suns. Temporary shelters dotted the landscape like a scattering of glowing seeds. And for the first time, the Zithran refugees had a sense of safety. But safety alone was not enough. They needed a home, a permanent place where they could thrive. And Elias knew that building it would test him in ways he had never imagined. Early the next morning, Elias gathered a small group of Zithrans and humans to survey the valley. The humans were wary. Many whispered doubts under their breath, questioning why he insisted on helping the aliens. "They are not our problem," one muttered. "Why risk our lives for strangers?" Elias ignored them. He had seen enough suffering to know that courage was not measured by popularity. He turned to the Zithrans. "We'll start small," he said. "Shelters, water systems, food storage. Nothing fancy, just safe, strong, and built together." The Zithrans exchanged hesitant glances. Their bodies were not made for heavy labor. Lifting beams or handling machinery could harm them. Many of them had never even touched metal tools before. Still, Elias found ways to include them. He adapted the machinery, creating smaller, lighter tools they could operate safely. He assigned tasks that suited their skills. Their delicate hands could weave insulation panels. Their sharp senses could spot weaknesses in structures, and their musical communication helped coordinate large groups without confusion. One elder, Lyrian, watched closely. His expression remained skeptical. "Why should we trust humans?" he asked one morning, his voice a mixture of melody and broken words. "Your kind brought wars, death, and fear. Why should we follow you now?" Elias met his gaze calmly. "Because I care about life, not politics," he replied. "I see your people. I see your children. I am here to help, not control." For the first time, Lyrian seemed to consider this seriously. The Zithrans had learned to survive in a universe filled with betrayal. Trust was earned, not given, and Elias' actions were already beginning to prove him worthy. Construction began in earnest. Elias led humans and Zithrans alike, showing them how to work side by side. He taught them to operate the adapted tools, and he patiently explained each step. Sometimes his explanations were simple words and gestures. Other times, he used drawings in the dirt. One morning, disaster struck. A scaffolding supporting the growing shelters collapsed. Several Zithrans were trapped underneath the falling beams, their fragile bodies pinned. Panic swept through workers. Elias didn't hesitate. With human strength and careful coordination, he lifted debris, freeing the Zithrans one by one. His hands were scratched and bleeding, but he barely noticed. When the last Zithran was safe, Lyrian approached him. "You risked yourself for us," he said quietly. "Not because you had to, but because you chose to." Elias nodded, brushing dust from his uniform. "That's what a home is about. Protecting each other, even when it's dangerous." That day changed the relationship between humans and Zithrans. Where fear had once lingered, respect began to grow. Children began following Elias, mimicking his actions, eager to learn. Adults started helping each other, sharing ideas and offering suggestions. The valley was no longer just a place of survival. It was becoming a community. But challenges remained. Not all humans supported Elias' mission. Some were openly hostile, spreading rumors and attempting to delay supply shipments. One morning, he discovered that a stockpile of building materials had been sabotaged, wooden beams cut, metal parts bent, and tools missing. Elias took a deep breath and called a meeting. "We won't fight with anger," he said firmly. "We will solve this with intelligence and teamwork. The home we are building is stronger than sabotage. We will continue." He organized patrols to secure supplies and built redundancies into their work systems. Meanwhile, he worked to educate the Zithrans about human practices so they could anticipate and respond to obstacles themselves. By blending human ingenuity with Zithran adaptability, the project moved forward. Weeks passed. Shelters began to take shape, sturdy and safe. Water channels were dug and lined, feeding a network of storage pools. Energy systems powered lights, heaters, and communication devices. Elias even found ways to integrate Zithran technology, using their bioluminescent panels to light the shelters at night. The Zithrans started to feel at home. Children laughed while playing near the river, mimicking human games. Adults experimented with building techniques, learning from Elias' guidance. Even Lyrian, once skeptical, now assisted actively, coordinating work crews with a careful, wise authority. Despite progress, Elias remained vigilant. He knew survival was only the first step. They needed to be ready for unforeseen threats. He held regular drills for both humans and Zithrans, preparing them for storms, accidents, and possible external dangers. He encouraged communication, ensuring everyone knew the plans and their roles. One afternoon, Elias noticed a young Zithran struggling with a heavy tool. He rushed over, adjusting it to fit her small hands. "You have to be safe," he said gently. "If you are hurt, everyone suffers. We succeed together or we fail together." The girl nodded, a shy smile breaking across her face. She began helping with renewed determination, and soon other children joined in, learning not just tools, but teamwork and courage. The valley itself seemed to respond to their efforts. Wildflowers bloomed along the riverbanks, and birds returned to the trees. The humans and Zithrans noticed how small acts of care could transform the environment. Elias often paused to admire this quiet beauty, knowing that it symbolized hope. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, Lyrian approached Elias with a small group of Zithran elders. "You are not like others," he said. "You do not force, you do not deceive. You guide, you protect. You are a leader." Elias smiled, humbled. "I do not lead for praise. I lead because it is the right thing to do. That night, as humans and Zithrans shared their first proper meal in the valley, Elias walked among them. The laughter, the conversation, the sense of shared purpose, it filled him with pride. He had not only saved lives, he had sparked the beginnings of a new community. Yet, he knew the valley's safety was temporary. Natural hazards could strike, rival factions might arrive, and resources could still be limited. But for the first time, he saw the possibilities. The valley could become a true home, a sanctuary for those who had lost everything. As he lay under the stars, Elias reflected on what he had learned. Trust could be built slowly, brick by brick, heart by heart. Courage was not only facing danger, it was guiding others through it. And even in the darkest moments, hope could grow if someone was willing to protect it. The Zithrans were beginning to see humans in a new light. No longer distant or threatening, Elias showed them the best of what humanity could be: compassionate, resourceful, and courageous. And in doing so, he began to earn their admiration, respect, and, slowly, their trust. The work was far from over. Permanent structures still needed building. Supply lines had to be secured, and the community had to learn to govern itself. But Elias knew one simple truth. Together, humans and Zithrans could create a home unlike any other, a place where fear had no power, and hope had every chance to grow. As the valley settled into a peaceful night, children asleep in their shelters and adults planning the next day's work, Elias looked up at the twin sun's fading light. He whispered softly to himself, "We've only just begun." The seeds of trust had been planted. The foundation of the home was laid. And Elias knew that no matter what challenges came next, the valley would stand as a symbol of unity, a testament to what could be achieved when one human chose courage, compassion, and action over fear. The valley had begun to breathe with life. Shelters stood tall, water flowed through carefully lined channels, and children's laughter rang across the hills. Humans and Zithrans moved side by side, their work synchronized, their trust growing with each passing day. Elias walked among them, quietly observing. He felt proud, yet unease lingered in the back of his mind. Orion's sevens weather was unpredictable, and the twin suns above often signaled storms that could rise without warning. That unease became reality one afternoon. Dark clouds gathered over mountains, swirling unnaturally fast. A low hum filled the air, barely perceptible at first, then growing louder. Orion storms, rare but devastating, were approaching. Elias could feel the electric charge on his skin. Everyone inside! Now, he shouted. Humans and Zithrans rushed to secure children and elderly, carrying them into shelters. Tent flaps were fastened, structures reinforced, and water systems covered. Elias moved from group to group, giving orders, adjusting weak beams, and checking the integrity of each shelter. His voice was calm but urgent, guiding the frantic efforts. Despite their preparations, the storm hit harder than expected. Powerful winds tore through the valley, scattering loose materials and battering shelters. Lightning struck the nearby cliffs, sending sparks and small rocks tumbling into the open. The river swelled, threatening to flood their storage systems. Panic rose among the refugees, their previous trust shaken by the sudden danger. Elias acted quickly. "Stay together. Follow me." He grabbed ropes, securing loose structures and reinforcing walls. Using drones he had built for monitoring, he created temporary barriers against the wind and rain. The Zithrans, fragile though they were, adapted quickly to his guidance. Together, they held the shelters against the storm's assault. Midway through the chaos, a cry for help rang out. Elias spun around to see a young Zithran girl, Miri, trapped under collapsing scaffolding. The wind howled, rain stung his eyes, and debris threatened to crush him if he moved wrong. But he didn't hesitate. He sprinted through the storm, lifting heavy beams with his strength, carefully balancing himself against the slick ground. With the help of nearby Zithrans, he freed Miri, carrying her to safety. She clung to him, shivering and terrified, yet safe. Lyrian, observing from a distance, finally stepped forward. His skepticism had been replaced with respect, and in that moment he saw the truth of Elias' leadership. "You are not like any human I have known," he said, shouting over the storm. "You do not flee from danger. You stand in it." Elias nodded, refusing to stop. "We protect each other. That is what a home is. That is what family is. The storm raged on for hours, battering every structure, testing every human and Zithran alike. Elias coordinated efforts to prevent water from flooding storage systems, rerouted power lines to keep lights and communications active, and organized evacuation plans for those trapped in weaker shelters. He moved tirelessly, ignoring exhaustion, hunger, and fear. Every action inspired others. Humans and Zithrans worked together seamlessly, each learning from the other's strengths. At one point, a lightning strike hit a storage shed containing critical supplies. Flames erupted, threatening to spread to the nearby shelters. Elias grabbed a fire extinguisher, sprinting toward the blaze despite the rain and wind. Zithrans formed a line, passing extinguishers, covering flames with wet blankets. Slowly, inch by inch, they brought the fire under control. By the time the storm finally passed, the valley was a battered, muddy mess. Shelters leaned. Some were destroyed, and debris littered the ground. But the people were safe. Elias, soaked and exhausted, looked over the valley. For the first time, he allowed himself a moment to breathe. Despite the destruction, despite the chaos, no lives had been lost. Children peeked from behind repaired walls, their eyes wide, still filled with awe at the storm they had survived. Adults began clearing debris, rebuilding shelters immediately, their movements efficient and coordinated. The storm had tested them all, but it had also taught them resilience. Miri ran to Elias, hugging him tightly. "Thank you," she whispered in her melodic language, which he had begun to understand through shared words and gestures. Elias smiled, lifting her carefully. "You're safe now. That's all that matters." Lyrian approached, nodding to Elias. "You have proven yourself human, not just in skill, but in courage and heart. We follow you because you earn it, not because you demand it." Elias' chest swelled with quiet pride. It was moments like this, small yet powerful, that reminded him why he had acted against orders in the first place. Saving lives, building trust, and creating a home from nothing. It was more than duty. It was purpose. The Zithrans began to take initiative. Inspired by Elias, they reinforced structures, built stronger foundations, and used their delicate technology to stabilize shelters. Some even began experimenting with designs of their own, blending human engineering with Zithran ingenuity. Humans learned too, observing the aliens' creativity and adaptability. Together, they turned destruction into an opportunity. Elias walked through the valley the following morning, assessing the work. Small, strong shelters now stood where flimsy tents had been. Water channels had been reinforced with stones and Zithran bioluminescent algae, lighting the valley at night. Paths were cleared, supply stations rebuilt, and everyone moved with a renewed sense of purpose. One human, skeptical before the storm, approached him. "I didn't believe it before, but seeing how everyone worked together, you were right. They are not just fragile. They are strong if given a chance." Elias nodded. Strength isn't always measured by muscle. It's measured by courage, heart, and the willingness to help each other. That is what makes a home. That evening, Elias gathered everyone near the river for a brief meeting. "We survived the storm," he said, "but there will be more challenges. Nature will test us. Others may try to harm us. We must be ready not just to survive, but to thrive. And we will, together." The Zithrans responded with melodic cheers. Humans, some still wary, nodded silently. The storm had united them more than any speech ever could. The sense of shared purpose was tangible. The valley, battered though it was, had become a crucible, forging a true community. As night fell, Elias looked up at the sky, the twin suns replaced by a blanket of stars. The storm had been a reminder that survival alone was not enough. A home required courage, resilience, and unwavering commitment. And he had seen it. The Zithrans, once timid and fearful, now moving with determination. The humans, once hesitant and skeptical, now working with pride. Together, they could face almost anything. Yet, Elias knew the trials were far from over. The valley was exposed, and the galaxy was unpredictable. Resources could run low, rival factions might arrive, and unexpected dangers could strike at any time. But for now, He allowed himself a moment to appreciate the victory, not of strength or skill, but of unity, trust, and hope. He walked back to the central shelter, where Miri and a few other children were playing, their laughter echoing across the valley. Lyrian followed, watching the scene with quiet approval. Elias placed a hand on Lyrian's shoulder. "We've done something remarkable here," he said. "But the real work is just beginning." Lyrian nodded, his melodic voice soft. "And we will follow human, not because we have to, but because you have earned our trust." Elias smiled. That was more than he had ever hoped for. The Zithrans were beginning to see humans not as threats, but as allies. Humans were beginning to see Zithrans not as fragile creatures, but as equals. Together, they were building more than a shelter. They were building a home, a sanctuary, and a community. As he lay under the stars at night, Elias thought of the challenges ahead. The construction of permanent shelters, the governance of the new community, and inevitable external threats. But he also knew this. As long as they stood together, no storm, no enemy, and no fear could break them. For the first time in a long while, Elias allowed himself to hope. The valley was no longer just a place of survival. It was becoming a symbol of unity, a proof of what humans could achieve when they acted with courage, compassion, and determination. And he was ready for whatever came next. The storm had passed, but the story of the valley and of Elias' leadership was only beginning. The valley had never looked so alive. Shelters gleamed in the sunlight. Children laughed as they played along the riverbanks, and adults moved with purpose, tending to crops, repairs, and preparations for the future. Humans and Zithrans now worked side by side, a community forged by trust, courage, and shared hardships. Elias walked among them quietly, his eyes scanning for anything out of place. He did not have to wait long. Distant thunder was not natural this time. Through the valley's ridge, a formation of ships appeared on the horizon, the markings unmistakable. A faction from Zithra had come. Their ships were sleek, fast, and heavily armed. They descended with authority, landing near the edge of the valley. Their leader, a stern Zithran named Varian, stepped forward. His aura radiated power, and his presence immediately drew all eyes. Elias stepped forward as well. He had faced storm, sabotage, and exhaustion, but this was different. These were Zithrans, the same species as the refugees he protected. Yet they came as conquerors, demanding submission. "You have no right to harbor these refugees," Varian said in a commanding tone, his voice both melodic and cold. "They belong to Zithra. They will return, or there will be consequences." Elias kept his voice calm. "They are survivors, not property. They have suffered enough. They are safe here, and I will protect them." Varian's eyes narrowed. "You dare defy a Zithran authority?" Elias didn't flinch. "I don't defy. I protect. And protection sometimes requires courage, not fear." Tension rippled across the valley. Humans clenched their fists, ready to defend their new home. Zithrans, including Lyrian and other elders, formed a line alongside the humans. For the first time, Elias realized something incredible. The refugees themselves were ready to fight, not out of hatred, but to defend the home they had begun to love. Varian smirked. "Then show me your courage." The first attack came as a shockwave from the landing ships, small drones scouting the valley. Elias had anticipated some form of conflict. Using makeshift defenses built during storm drills, he activated barriers and redirected energy grids to power emergency shields. Humans and Zithrans moved quickly, using their combined knowledge to adapt to each strike. Elias coordinated the defense like a conductor. "Lyrian, flank the left ridge with the bioluminescent nets," he shouted. "Maris, redirect the energy shields to the east." The valley became a battlefield of strategy rather than brute force. Elias used the terrain to his advantage. The river, the cliffs, and the dense foliage were all part of his plan. Zithrans used their agility to operate drones, while humans provided strength and engineering knowledge. Together, they were a force Varian had not anticipated. Varian's attacks intensified, but Elias remained calm. He moved among his people, repairing shields, adjusting traps, and inspiring courage. Children were safely hidden, while adults moved with precision, responding to commands and anticipating attacks. Every strike, every maneuver was calculated. Elias' leadership turned potential chaos into organized defense. Midway through the confrontation, Varian himself landed near the central valley, his presence commanding attention. He wielded a staff-like weapon capable of emitting energy pulses. Elias knew he could not meet Varian in a direct fight. His strength was human, fragile in comparison to Zithran power. Instead, he relied on intelligence and strategy. He signaled Lyrian and the Zithran elders, distract him, led him toward the riverbed. "I have a plan." Lyrian nodded, understanding instantly. A group of Zithrans moved as one, drawing Varian toward a prepared trap. A series of energy nets powered by rerouted solar grids and carefully placed channels in the riverbed. Varian's staff pulses triggered the nets, and the water channeled through the riverbed intensified the energy field. He was immobilized temporarily, enough for Elias to step forward. "You seek to reclaim what is not yours." Elias shouted, "These refugees are free. They have chosen to survive here, and I will not let fear dictate their fate." Varian struggled against the immobilizing energy, his pride wounded. But Elias spoke calmly, clearly, and with authority. "Look around you, Varian. They are thriving. Humans and Zithrans together, living, building, learning, and protecting each other. Is that not what your species should aspire to? Harmony, survival, and courage?" For the first time, Varian hesitated. He observed the children laughing along the river, adults rebuilding shelters after minor damage from drones, and humans working alongside Zithrans, not as masters, but as equals. Elias continued, "You can destroy, you can command, you can threaten, but it will not change what has been built here. Trust has been forged, courage has been proven, and unity cannot be broken by fear." Slowly, Varian's expression softened. He saw what Elias had achieved. Not just a physical home, but the emotional sanctuary, the unity of two species. He realized that this valley, this community, was stronger than any force he could bring against it. "Perhaps I underestimated the humans." Varian admitted. His tone was grudging but honest. "And perhaps I underestimated your leadership." Elias nodded. Strength is not always measured by weapons. It is measured by courage, heart, and action. These people have shown all three. Varian stepped back, signaling his drones to withdraw. The threat receded, leaving the valley in silence. But it was a victorious silence. Humans and Zithrans alike cheered, hugging one another, grateful for survival and newfound freedom. Lyrian approached Elias, his voice full of warmth. "You are the hero we never had," he said. "Not because of strength, but because of wisdom, courage, and heart. You saved our people. You protected our home. You taught us trust and unity." Elias shook his head humbly. "I only did what was right. You all contributed. Without you, none of this would have been possible. I am only part of what we have built together." The valley became more than a home. It became a symbol. Humans and Zithrans living together, sharing knowledge, culture, and trust. Other Zithran refugees who arrived later saw the valley and understood immediately that it was a sanctuary. Humans in nearby colonies began to hear the stories and recognize the courage and leadership of Elias and his team. Months passed. Structures grew stronger, crops flourished, and the children of the valley played freely, learning both human and Zithran ways. Elias continued to guide them, but his role evolved. He was no longer just a protector. He was a teacher, a mentor, and a bridge between species. One evening, as the twin sun set over the mountains, Elias walked along the river with Miri and a few other children. She had grown confident, curious, and brave under his guidance. She looked up at him and said in her melodic language, which he had learned to understand, "You saved us. You built our home. You are our hero." Elias smiled, feeling the weight of their words. "We built it together," he said, "and we will continue to protect it together." Lyrian joined them, observing the children laughing and playing. "Perhaps this is the future," he said thoughtfully. Humans and Zithrans, side by side, learning, protecting, thriving. A home built not by fear, but by courage. Elias gazed at the valley, the river reflecting the last light of the setting suns. For so long, he had acted alone, risking everything because others hesitated. Now, he realized that heroism was not just about one person. It was about inspiring others, guiding them, and creating hope when none existed. And in this valley, on Orion 7, Elias had done exactly that. He had built a home for those who had none, earned the trust of a species, and shown what humanity could achieve when courage, compassion, and intelligence worked together. The story of the valley spread across the galaxy. Refugees arrived seeking safety. Humans from other colonies visited to learn and to help. The valley became a beacon, a testament to the truth of HFY. Humans were capable of extraordinary heroism, not through domination or conquest, but through empathy, ingenuity, and unwavering courage. Elias stood on the highest ridge of the valley, watching the sun disappear behind the mountains. The wind carried laughter, the rustle of leaves, and the soft hum of Zithran conversation. He felt exhaustion, yes, but also fulfillment, the rare kind that comes only from knowing that lives have been saved, communities have been built, and hope had been restored. He whispered to himself, "This is what it means to be human, to build, to protect, to inspire. And this home will endure because we made it together." The valley was no longer just a piece of land. It was a home, a sanctuary, a symbol of unity. And Elias Grant, the human who would dare to act when others would not, became the hero they never had, but had always needed. The night settled over the valley, stars twinkling above, and the future stretched wide and promising. Elias knew that challenges would come again, but for now, humanity and Zithrans alike could rest. Together, they had proven that courage, compassion, and cooperation could overcome fear, conflict, and despair. The valley and the hope it represented would endure.